Senator Aubrey McCarthy.
Thank you, Seanad. Thank you for being here. Before we start, I just want to say that Home Building Finance Ireland, you're very proactive on the ground, and I know you were a significant contributor this last week in County Kildare at the land activation symposium. So I know Sonia and Alan, and they're doing a great job down there. So even that was, I believe it's the beginning of something special. So you guys presenting on the funding models was really important, and it was a practical presence, and I think it makes a difference. I'm involved in an approved housing body called Tiglin, and I know Hugh for years there, and I know the work that O'Coolan and many others do. What I have seen, I know when I was setting up a place in Greystones, we were looking for finance, and I'd been renting it for years, and we had 28 people from an addiction background, a homeless background as well, living in the property. And when we went to look for help from the Department of Health said it's a housing issue. The Department of Housing said it's a health issue. So I was caught with 28 people about to be made homeless in a situation. So then I went to look for finance. It was just, the whole thing was a debacle in the extreme. So now I've sort of learnt a bit since then, and I'm delighted to say that property, we got over the line, and we've 34 units of housing there, and it has been fantastically successful, and we won the Irish Council of Social Housing Award, etc. But I'm just wondering, as an approved housing body, and Hugh, maybe you can address this, how many units a year, under the conditions that you're in at the moment, how many units a year can O'Coolan realistically deliver?
Yeah, well, that's a very fair question, and you know that's why we put in those numbers that we have put in from the start. Like, we were incorporated in 2014. We started building it in 2016. We've done 137. We had a much larger pipeline. You know, we had aspirations, if you like, to build thousands, but for various reasons, and a lot of it does come down to finance. We just had to, you know, trim back and focus on what we are doing. But look at what's happening in other countries. Look at Barcelona, for example. In Barcelona, I think it was 6 or 8 years ago, they started doing community-led and cooperative housing, and they're up to 1,000 now already. And what they do is they will provide land, and they will provide some seed finance. And again, look at our other European neighbours. You know, when the will is there, and when we do support these organisations with land and with some kind of finance, because you know they're not looking to be gifted it; it's paid back over time. You know, we can reach high numbers. So, like, what are the numbers, Aubrey? I honestly don't know, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't replicate what they're doing in Barcelona. That's one city.
And if you were to replicate the 1,000 units per year, what sort of level of state funding would that require?
Okay, well, that's interesting. So if we were going to do it under the STAR scheme, okay, you're getting 175,000 per unit, okay, and that's one example. If you're doing it on for affordable purchase, you know, you'd have to go through one of the schemes that are there at the moment, and the only one that really would be available is the First Home scheme. And in that one, you can get up to 20% plus help to buy, say 30% in total. So 30% of the cost of the new house. That's somewhere north of 100,000 as well. You know, so if you want to put that figure in, say 100,000 or 150,000 or even up to 175,000, and multiply it by your 1,000, that's you're looking at what your initial input is. So it is like it's not small change, but that's where we are now. Like, you know, we've come from a situation where we were able to deliver truly affordable housing by getting the land at reduced cost from the council, and by getting them to waive the development levies, and by applying a 5% margin ourselves. And those first houses that were sold for 165 and 177,000, you know, It was a.
It was at the Ballymun site?
Yes, it was headlines in the Irish Times when somebody decided to sell one. Because they've gone up. They've gone so far up in price. So what I'm saying is, it isn't actually possible now to build affordably just using those supports. You need some other state support.
Catch and Rosie, thanks to you. I just want to ask you, so the model you're proposing, it separates land ownership from the housing ownership, and that allows permanent affordability as such. So can I ask you, can you explain how that structure actually works regarding reducing upfront cost for the purchaser, but then how does the purchaser sell that property on? What's the mechanism for all of that?
Well, I suppose within the kind of land trust model, I suppose the owners would probably be working through a kind of a co-op model, like Hugh has been speaking about, and what would normally you would become kind of a member of a co-op or the kind of the land trust, and within that you would have, like Hugh has been speaking about, and what would normally you would become kind of a member of a co-op or the kind of the land trust, and within that you would have kind of a set of criteria, and they could be within. If we're speaking about the kind of coastal communities or Gaeltachts, that could be linked to, specific criteria that would kind of connect people to language or place. And in terms of sort of kind of selling back, you would really kind of sell back to the land trust or the co-op. It wouldn't be going into the open market. So that kind of piece would be, the houses kind of stay within the land trust or the co-op.
So if it was, let's say, the Ballymun,
yes.
What happened there, 175,000 to purchase, so then the sale of that would never go to market value?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that really important kind of asset lock that is essential to all of this.
Okay.
Which it wasn't in the Ballymun project.
All right. And just to HBFI, just wondering, the financing for the community housing, approved housing bodies, etc. Does that sit with the housing body? Does it sit with the lender? Does it sit with the taxpayer? Where does the final, if things didn't work out, where does it finally land?
Well, we lend obviously to house builders for the construction phase. So obviously we're lending to them, and we do our normal due diligence because we're lending taxpayers' money, and we're very mindful of that. And therefore, if something went wrong on that particular scheme, like in anything, our first port of call would be try and work with the house builder to still get the homes delivered. And ultimately, if there was a shortfall, there's a liability to the house builder at the end of that. But like any lending transaction, if they couldn't pay us back, there'd be clearly a loss from HBFI's perspective. So it's a true kind of commercial relationship. We're lending money, we're doing a full assessment, and we expect to get that money back, Deputy. And so far, our loan book is performing very well. We've had no losses, and we haven't had to take any impairments.
Excellent. Thanks a lot.